When my long-awaited Cybertruck finally arrived, I was over the moon. After 2 years of saving every penny and enduring countless delays, my dream vehicle was finally sitting in my driveway. The sleek, futuristic design gleamed under the morning sun, and I couldn't stop grinning. But little did I know, my joy would soon be overshadowed by a battle with my homeowners association, HOA, that would uncover a web of corruption and deceit. It all started with my neighbor, Linda Harper. Linda was the kind of person who treated the HOA rulebook like it was her personal Bible. She was the HOA president, and she wielded her power with an iron fist. From the moment I moved into Oakwood Estates 6 months ago, I'd heard stories about her relentless enforcement of the rules. But I never imagined she'd target me, or that her actions would lead to the downfall of the entire HOA board. The trouble began the morning my Cybertruck was delivered. I had planned the delivery for early Saturday morning, hoping most of my neighbors would still be asleep. But as I was signing the delivery papers, I heard the unmistakable sound of a phone camera clicking. I looked up to see Linda standing at the edge of her perfectly manicured lawn, still in her pink bathrobe, snapping pictures of my new truck. "That's quite an interesting vehicle," she called out, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I don't recall seeing anything like this approved by the architectural committee." I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. "It's a Tesla Cybertruck," I explained. "Fully electric, zero emissions. It actually helps property values because it shows we're a forward-thinking community." Linda's eyes narrowed as she circled the truck, tapping her perfectly manicured nails against the stainless steel exterior. "Well," she said, "I'm sure the board will be very interested in reviewing this unusual addition to our community. We have standards to maintain, you know." She pulled out her phone again, this time taking close-up pictures of the charging port. Just then, my elderly neighbor, Mr. Henderson, walked by with his golden retriever, Max. His eyes lit up when he saw the truck. "Now that's something special," he said, giving me a thumbs up. I noticed Linda's face twitch slightly. She and Mr. Henderson had been at odds ever since he voted against her proposal to ban bird feeders last spring, the HOA's first strike. By the afternoon, I'd spotted at least 3 other HOA board members doing slow drive-bys, all of them taking pictures of my truck. That evening, as I was programming my garage door opener, Linda's teenage son, Jason, walked by with their poodle, Princess. He stopped dead in his tracks, staring at the Cybertruck. "Cool," he exclaimed, pulling out his phone to take a picture. I heard Linda's shrill voice from across the street. "Jason, inside now." The poor kid jumped like he'd been shocked and scurried away. Just as I was about to head inside, my next-door neighbor, Emily Carter, leaned over the fence. "Watch your back," she whispered. "Linda's been calling everyone on the board." I overheard her talking about some emergency meeting tomorrow. Emily's family had nearly lost their fight about their solar panels the previous year. The only reason they won was because of new state laws protecting renewable energy installations. As the sun set, I couldn't help but notice Linda's husband's giant gas-guzzling SUV parked in their driveway, the same one that had been leaking oil stains for months without any HOA complaints. The irony wasn't lost on me. The emergency meeting. The next morning, I woke up to a bright yellow notice fluttering under my windshield wiper. My heart sank as I read the official HOA notice: urgent, unauthorized vehicle modification. Immediate fire hazard concern. I looked up to see Linda watching from her bay window, coffee cup in hand, a smug smile playing across her face. Just last week, she'd been bragging about her new gas-guzzling SUV at the neighborhood barbecue, telling anyone who would listen that electric cars were just a trend. Now, she was trying to claim my factory-fresh Cybertruck was somehow modified and dangerous. I decided to handle this calmly. I spent the morning researching HOA regulations about electric vehicles and printed out Tesla's safety certifications. I dropped them off at the HOA office, where the secretary, Mrs. Alvarez, gave me a knowing look. "Linda's been in here all morning," she confided, making copies of some article about EV fires from a website called greenenergyisdangerous.com. The battle escalates. Things got weirder at dinner time. Linda's teenage son, Jason, started walking past my house with his friends, pointing and laughing at my Cybertruck. I caught him taking selfies next to it, making exaggerated scared faces, and posting them on social media with captions like, "Help. The robot car might eat me." Just before bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Check your security cameras." I pulled up the footage and watched in disbelief as Linda walked up my driveway at dusk, holding what looked like a temperature gun. She was pointing it at my Cybertruck and taking photos of the readings. But then I noticed something odd in the background of the video. While Linda was playing amateur fire inspector, her husband, Mark, was measuring my driveway with a tape measure. Why would he need to do that? I remembered he owned Harper Construction, the company that always seemed to get all the HOA maintenance contracts. The towing incident. The next morning, another notice appeared, this time claiming my Cybertruck was parked 3 inches too close to the sidewalk, creating an emergency hazard situation. The fine would be $100 per day until I moved it to an approved parking location, which, according to Linda, meant the back of my house, completely hidden from view. I called Tesla support to ask if they'd ever heard of HOAs banning Cybertrucks. The representative sounded concerned and said they'd document my case. We've been seeing a pattern, she explained. Some HOAs seem to have a particular issue with our vehicles, especially in areas with certain business interests. That night, as I was adding up potential fines and reviewing the HOA bylaws for the 100th time, I got an unexpected visitor. Mr. Henderson hobbled up my driveway, looking nervous. Listen, he said, glancing around, there's something you should know about Linda and these contracts. Meet me tomorrow at the coffee shop downtown. Bring a notebook. Uncovering the corruption. The next day, Mr. Henderson handed me a stack of crumpled papers. You didn't get these from me, he whispered, looking nervously over his shoulder at Linda's house. I spread the documents across my kitchen table, and what I found made my blood boil. The first page was a maintenance contract between the HOA and Harper Construction LLC, Linda's husband's company. The date caught my eye. It was signed just 2 days after Linda became HOA president. As I dug deeper, the pieces started falling into place. Every single maintenance project in our neighborhood for the past 3 years had gone to Harper Construction without any other companies even getting a chance to bid. The HOA's financial records showed simple jobs like fixing sidewalks being charged at triple the normal rate. The annual landscaping budget had mysteriously doubled since Linda took over. The real smoking gun came from an unlikely source, Linda's son Jason's TikTok account. The kid had posted videos bragging about his family's new beach house, saying, "Whole life is sweet." He even showed off his dad's company truck, complete with the HOA logo. My neighbor's fees had paid for it. The final showdown. Armed with this evidence, I walked into the next HOA meeting with my lawyer, Sarah Martinez, and James Cooper from the State Housing Board. The room fell silent as I began my presentation. Before we discussed the so-called fire hazard of my vehicle, I started, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'd like to address some concerning financial discoveries. I pulled out the first document, displaying it on the projector screen. This is the maintenance contract with Harper Construction LLC, owned by none other than Linda's husband. Linda jumped up, her face red. That contract was approved by the entire board. Funny you mention that, Sarah chimed in, pulling out more papers. Because according to state law, all contracts over $10,000 require open bidding and resident notification. We have proof of neither. The room erupted when James Cooper stood up. Based on these documents, the State Housing Board is launching a full investigation into the HOA's financial practices. Linda's composure finally cracked. You can't do this. We were protecting property values. Speaking of image, I added, pulling up screenshots from the HOA's bank statements. Would anyone like to explain why the board's emergency fund was used to pay for Linda's family vacation to Cancun last spring? One by one, other neighbors started standing up, sharing their own stories of harassment and selective rule enforcement. The teenage son who'd been leaving notes on my truck slumped down in his chair, no longer looking so smug. The aftermath. The motion to dissolve the current board passed overwhelmingly. Linda stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Her husband followed, but not before shooting me a look that could freeze fire. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with texts and emails from neighbors I'd never even spoken to before. Local news had caught wind of the story. Corrupt HOA board exposed by electric vehicle owner. I drove to the towing company in my old backup car, heart racing as I approached the lot. There she was, my beautiful Cybertruck, still gleaming despite spending days in impound. The towing company manager actually apologized, saying they'd been pressured by Linda to hold on to it longer than legally allowed. As I drove my Cybertruck home, I noticed moving trucks outside Linda's house. Her husband was frantically loading boxes while she supervised from their driveway, still wearing her designer sunglasses despite the cloudy weather. When she saw me drive by, she quickly turned away, nearly tripping over one of her precious garden gnomes. A new beginning. The next week, our first new HOA meeting was different from any I'd ever attended. Mr. Henderson, now serving as interim board president, opened the floor for all residents to share their ideas. Emily proposed a community garden in the spot where Linda had forced the removal of a children's playground. The Carters were already planning to reinstall their solar panels. But the biggest surprise came when the state investigators finished their initial review. They found over $50,000 in questionable expenses, beyond just Linda's vacation. Fake maintenance bills, inflated contracts, even a mysterious consulting fee paid to Linda's sister. The whole neighborhood buzzed with each new revelation. Linda and her family took 3 full weeks to move out. Each morning, I'd find a new reason to wash my Cybertruck in the driveway, making sure its distinctive shape caught the sunlight just right. Their teenage son stopped leaving notes. Now he just stared at the ground whenever he walked by. On their final moving day, Karma served up something special. Their U-Haul truck broke down right in front of my house. I could have been petty, could have watched them struggle like Linda had done to so many others. Instead, I offered to help, even using my Cybertruck's powerful motor to give their U-Haul a jump start. The look on Linda's face was priceless, a mix of shame, anger, and maybe just maybe, a hint of respect. The new HOA. The new HOA rules were approved last week. Not only are EVs welcome, but we're installing charging stations in the community center parking lot. Mr. Henderson made sure to name one of them after me, though I tried to talk him out of it. The Carter's solar panels are going up next month, and 3 other neighbors have ordered Cybertrucks of their own. Yesterday, I got a letter from Linda's lawyer. Inside was an unsigned apology note and a check covering all my towing fees and HOA fines. I donated it to the new community garden fund. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making things better for everyone else. As I park my Cybertruck each evening now, I think about how one person's attempt to bully their neighbor backfired so spectacularly. The old saying goes that karma takes time, but in this case, karma drove a Cybertruck and had receipts. The best part? Our property values actually went up after Linda left. Turns out, good neighbors are worth more than strict rules. Epilogue. The story of how I took down a corrupt HOA board spread far and wide. It became a cautionary tale for other HOAs across the country, and a rallying cry for homeowners tired of being bullied by overzealous boards. My Cybertruck, once the target of Linda's wrath, became a symbol of resilience and justice. As for Linda and her family, they moved to a new neighborhood, one without an HOA. I like to think they learned a valuable lesson, but even if they didn't, I know our community is better off without them. And every time I drive my Cybertruck through the streets of Oakwood Estates, I can't help but smile. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the truck. It was about standing up for what's right and proving that even the smallest voice can bring down the mightiest empire.